How can anyone, whether they want to work in a language school or privately from their own laptop anywhere in the world, create a rewarding and impactful career teaching English as a second language, even if they are just starting out or have no teaching experience or ability? Hi, my name is Lynette Kim, and here on the TESOL Talk podcast, I aim to answer that very question.
You can tell when you're assessing classrooms and ESL teachers that the class is going well and the students are fully engaged just by the level of energy in the room. And it's almost like an excitement or a buzzing. You can see that students are actively participating and what they're learning and the relevancy of what they're learning is resonating with them. And the class takes on an energy of its own. And it's a wonderful thing to watch, to see that human interaction and that learning taking place. You can almost feel it, it's almost tangible. And I have some favorite things that I like to do in the ESL classroom that are really important for engaging lessons that involve the class and get that atmosphere going. So 7 of my favorite things. Number 1, and this always comes first, is students need to understand at the lesson beginning what the relevancy is to them. What they need to know from the outset, whether it's by your presentation on the whiteboard, the information you have up there to set the lesson up. Now, I'm not talking about putting up on the whiteboard what the lesson's about and a couple of activities that they're going to do or some vocabulary. Not that. Perhaps you've put up some pictures. Perhaps you have a really interesting, controversial question that's going to lead them into the lesson, something they're all going to be sitting about, talking about and going, what's that? What are we learning, And it's got them excited. So the relevancy. So how you're going to engage these students from the outset to make them realize that this lesson is important to them and they want to know what it's about. And when you start off that lesson and with that question and you lead them into the topic, you're going to explain to them how this links to their daily life, how it's relevant, how they need this skill, and when they leave the classroom, how this is going to be useful to them. So you've got to tell them what they're going to learn, but in a way that piques their curiosity. And then at the end of the lesson, you'll be able to go back and ask them what they learned, and they'll know full well, which is great. Now, the next thing is presentation, and it flows on from that relevancy because that whiteboard, how it's presented on the whiteboard, the things that are going to attract their attention. Now, that's all part of presentation, but the rest of presentation is you might have a first activity in the course book that you're teaching, and it kind of introduces the topic of the lesson. It might have a question and answer section where students are going to ask and answer questions with each other about the topic, and that's what's being used in the course book to get the lesson presented and started off. But how are you going to make that better? And this could be by using realia. You could bring something. So if the lesson were about jobs, or if it was about hospitality, you could bring in some actual forms from hotels, or you could pull up a website and talk about different hotels and what hotel students have stayed at, and what's the process for checking in, and they could rate hotels or talk about their past experiences, bringing their real life into that classroom. So here's presentation. So the whole lesson could have just been about hospitality, but here you are bringing real life in, bringing in that relevancy, presenting it in a way, oh, that's interesting. Everyone likes to go on holidays. Most people have been to a really nice hotel at some point, or perhaps have gone to some really interesting alternative ones. Just always remember, your students are from all over the world. They've been places and seen things that you've probably never, ever experienced. So always draw that out of them and into the classroom so everyone can enjoy. Now, the next thing is communication. For engaging lessons, you need to be very good at adapting tasks. Course books are very good at being predictable, but that does not give you engaging lessons. Your job as the teacher is to look at these tasks in course books and think, how can I make this more communicative? How could I make this pair or group work? How can I get students wanting to talk about this? How can I expand the task? So, all right, you might have to do the task the way it appears in the book. Say it's a listening task, for example, but then how can I expand on that and get them to go one step further in a discussion format? Always be thinking, this should be always in the back of every ESL teacher's mind. I'm going to expand on this. I'm going to bring out more of students' experience in everyday life into this activity, and I'm going to draw in their relevancy, and I'm going to do that in a pair or a task, a pair or group work activity, so that these students are all talking and engaged and practicing English. Now, another thing that I really like to do is bring in students' experience, which again is expanding on what we just talked about. So here, you get to know your students quite well as you're teaching particular classrooms. You'll know where they're from. Obviously, you're going to find out about their jobs, where they've traveled, what they like and dislike, their hobbies. Always use this as an opportunity to draw them in and have students shine in the classroom. Get students to always discuss or link things where you can, because this gets lessons engaging. This is where someone could look in on your lesson at any time, and it's a buzz with people sharing communication, sharing experiences, all in English, which is the goal. So you're there guiding that. And in these discussions, you might think, well, they're just sharing English speaking. Maybe they're making errors while they're speaking. Maybe they're not using the right vocabulary. That is okay. You can have these making mistake time sessions where they can make mistakes and you do nothing about it. Or you could say at the outset, okay, in this task, we're going to share information, but we're also going to correct. So if you notice someone making a mistake, you can go, oh, excuse me, and then you can offer a suggestion to correct it. Or you can ask someone else to help you if you can't think of a word or if you're having trouble, or you as a teacher might interject and you might ask someone to do it. So having this where, yes, they're all engaged in speaking and they're enjoying that communication, but also giving them the opportunity to improve by that correction, whether it's self, peer, or teacher-directed correction. Now, another thing, now I absolutely always have competitions and games in my classrooms, and we're talking teaching adults. This is important. Adults love fun. They want games. They want to enjoy themselves, as long as it's always in the spirit of learning and in the spirit of enjoyment for everyone to, be more interactive with each other. So there's a host of games that you can play with students and that you can do, ESL games. You can Google them. You can use warm-ups. I've had vocabulary tasks where I've split that into a game of charades even, and had students acting out different vocabulary and things like that, or back to the boards. These are wonderful things. You can look them up online. And also when you first get a class, it's your new class and the students, you're all getting to know each other. Another thing I love to do is to split the class into two teams and say to the class, right, you guys are one team, you guys are the other. Name yourselves. We're putting the names on the board. And for the entire week, we're going to play games and have competitions, and the winning team will get points. And now, as these points build up at the end of the week, there will be a prize. There'll be a basket of goodies that the class wins. And you watch how quickly those team members will get to know each other. They'll get to support each other. They'll help each other throughout the class. And both teams will be doing this, and they'll all know each other's names. They'll all know all about each other. They'll spend time after school prepping for stuff so that they know they're their most prepared, because they just love the spirit of game. I mean, look, people love sports. They like team activities, and it's team building for your class. Make sure, though, at the end of the week, you mix up the classroom, mix up the teams, get everyone knowing everyone, and do that constantly throughout your time teaching that class. Usually classes will run for at least 3 months, and then some students will go up a level. So a lot of students will remain and new students will come in. That's how it always goes. Another thing on my list is student-directed independent learners. So you really need to look for your expert students in the classroom when you get to know them. Find out which students are good at certain things. It might be grammar points, it might be vocab, it might be pronunciation, and use their strengths and get them to understand how to help the students who are weaker in the things that they're strong at. So rather than you standing up as the expert all the time, you call on students to correct each other, to help each other out, explain things, because that atmosphere in the classroom of everyone helping each other and independent learning, allowing them to be adults. They don't want to sit there and act like children being told all the time. I mean, adults have information to share and they have life skills to share. And, your job is to draw this out as much as possible because you learn better when you're teaching someone else. And so do your students. And my seventh is visuals. It's always great to make sure you have visuals. And I mentioned this earlier on about Realia when talking about presentation. So I like to take students in the spirit of Realia. I've taken students on excursions. I've taken them places. I've taken them shopping. I've given them shopping lists. They collect everything and then sometimes they have to put it all back. But take them out interacting with shops and with people. And people working in retail, they're just fair game. I mean, you can have students go up and chat to them, ask about products. They've practiced it in class and then you take them out. I was lucky because for years I taught in a language school in Surfers Paradise, and so it was the tourist centre. I would send students regularly down to the information kiosk, that poor girl there, and have them asking questions about the area, getting directions if we were working on directions in class and prepositions, having students go and ask about different activities that are available, all this type of thing. And so it's fantastic to get students doing things that are real, that link to what they're learning in class. Now, these are my 7 favorite things for engaging lessons. There are heaps more, definitely. And if you have some great ideas, chuck them down in the comments, type them in for everybody because it's great to share what we have. And that's the wonderful thing also about this industry. People and teachers love to share, and it just is for the betterment of everyone.